Yeah.
So Denver's where you started doing
Yeah.
comedy. Can you tell us about that? What was the scene like when you first started?
It was all dudes mostly. It was really hard to like make connections with other females. Actually, I hate using the word female. Other women, and it was a little bit isolating. So like I went up my first time, and then I didn't go back for like 6 months because it just felt like really, I don't know, skeezy with all dudes, and hanging out in bars by yourself was hard. So I kind of like learned to toughen up a little bit and not be super approachable by men, so that I can
What
like
is being too approachable?
well, like just so I felt safe by myself at open mics. So like I was kind of like, I don't know, I just razz them a lot just so that they don't hit on me or they don't like, you know, so you just feel safe, I guess. Yeah. You like put up a front.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of women in comedy have that experience. When we talk about that, some of your early times where, you know, where you felt maybe outnumbered by men, maybe you had to toughen up in stand-up comedy to move forward.
Yeah, I started in Denver as well, but even a little while before Miriam, and at that time it felt, there was like 8 women total. And most of them were dating a male comedian because that's like the only way you could get them to like leave you alone, essentially, like, or like bring, like, that's the only way you had a like place at the table is like, oh, Christie's here because she's with him or whatever. And so I felt like that it pressured a lot of young comics, female comics, to like into relationships just for that reason. But I also grew up with my being raised by a single father, and I played trumpet with all boys, you know, all the way through middle school, high school, and into college. And so there was something about just my background that allowed me to like show up and kind of endure, you know, sort of the, you know, environment that you have to. But I don't think that women should have to have a temperament for it in order to stick around. So I teach comedy here in Denver, and it's specifically for like helping like women, LGBTQ people of color, all having a safer place to enter comedy. Because being at the bars on Colfax at midnight is like not a conducive environment for feeling safe and being funny.
I started in Denver too when everyone here was 5. And there weren't that many women then either. And I can relate to just saying, I find myself making myself sort of energetically small because I don't want the attention right before I go on stage or off stage. And then the challenge of being big on stage, I kind of wish that the green room would be base. You're on base, nothing can happen. Let me have that safe place there and then go on and be big, if that makes sense.
What was the scene like when you started, Jocelyn, in New York?
I started in New York City, and it is male-dominated, about 80% male, 20% women. But it was not something I really registered in my mind. And one day I was on a lineup, and someone was saying, oh, you're the only girl in the lineup. I was like, I was. So it was actually other women talking about how we are in the minority and how it's always just one woman in the lineup that made me realize, oh, yeah, it is kind of male-dominated. But I was pretty clueless about that. I was like, I'm just here to do my jokes. So I don't really get hit on much by male comics. So I guess maybe it was like the vibe I was giving off that I'm like here to do my work, and that's that.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like, well, Miriam had to kind of turn that vibe on of like, I'm just here for the jokes. You know?
Oh yeah, I stopped socializing. Like I just showed up, did open mics, and then left after my set. Like I never hung out.
No, but the hangout is so important. So I would not do that.
I just don't do
you just
it.
don't do that.
No.
Yeah, no, it's super important because it wasn't until I started hanging out that I really got much more traction in my career. But someone had to tell me about the importance of hanging out before I did that. So, but for a good 6 years, I didn't do the hangout.
I think that's where a lot of women in comedy, where we get stuck, because we do understand that duality where you need to be social because, you know, if anybody takes you on the road, you're on stage for an hour and you're off stage for 23 hours. But also you need to maintain like your professionalism and your safety. So we're always like trying to balance that. Like how much hanging out do I do without getting hit on? Like trying to balance that. Stephanie, specifically, I was really curious about starting comedy after you had already had a family. Like, how'd you find the time? What was the material? And, you know, what was that like?
That's a great question, because when you got pregnant, I realized sort of for the first time, I have 2 kids, and I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. always sort of had that double, like, things were important, you know. They were just as important as comedy, but comedy was just as important. So 9 months in, I won a trip to the Las Vegas Comedy Festival. So that sort of helped shift it pretty early to, this is important to me and I want to make a go of it. But
I'm finding as a mom, my life is totally different. Before the baby, I could hang out. I could just, and I wanted to, and I was out till 2 a.m. doing whatever, and I could pick up at the last minute and go do comedy in another state if somebody called me last minute. Now I have a baby, I have to prioritize the baby, and I feel a little bit distant from other people. I feel distant from the other comics now. You know, what are the best ways to kind of stay in it with everybody?
Oh my gosh, give yourself some grace too. You know, you're just balancing two things, and it may take a little bit longer sometimes because you do have sort of those two equal priorities, I feel. I do think there's a lot of women out there, and Janae, you're doing, you know, a lot of stuff to create your own path, so I think that is a great way to do it. I feel like you're doing it.
I am not a mom, but can I do teach a ton of moms that are starting to do comedy, and I have found that it is the hardest demographic, like, to be able to get it out there and get enough stage time and actually be able to commit time to getting going. But once you do, if you find, so I specifically had some moms that I thought were really good start a show at the theater I work at, just specifically to give moms stage time. I was like, I don't care who else you book, but your main prerogative is to give moms stage time. But once you actually market to that audience and for moms, it's actually like just an untapped market. The shows sell really well. They're so excited to go to like watch comedy that is geared towards them because there's so much. Yeah, because there's so much. You have to like plan. You can't be like doing it 2 weeks out. You got to be like, the show's in 2 months. It's on this night. Get your babysitter. But when you do that, like, it sells really well, and people are just like so excited to hear because it is so rare to hear a comic talking from that perspective, and they really like to go see it.
Thank you. I really enjoyed talking to you. One of my big missions, just in my life, I want to encourage and support women. I have a lot of women in my family. My family's a matriarchy. I have 4 sisters, and I just enjoy women. I enjoy working with women. I enjoy working for women and promoting women all the time. So I'm really grateful, Pat, let me participate in this show.